The flight attendant's voice rose, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm going to ask you one last time. Move to the back of the plane, or I will call security." Her words carried a sharp edge, her tone dripping with condescension. Elena, the Hispanic woman, calm as ever, looked up at her. "I've already told you I'm not moving," she said simply. Her tone was even, almost soothing, but it held an undeniable strength. She was humiliated in front of everyone, but no one expected what would happen next when the woman they thought was powerless stood up and revealed who she really was. As we delve into the story, if you believe everyone should be treated with respect, no matter what their background is, click the subscribe button now and tell us where you are watching from. The plane gleamed under the afternoon sun, its sleek design promising a luxurious journey for its passengers. Inside, the cabin was nothing short of opulence. Plush leather seats, gold accents, and an air of exclusivity that made everyone inside feel like royalty. Passengers moved with ease, their expensive luggage rolling behind them as they are ushered toward the sleek private jet waiting on the tarmac. Soon they settled into their spots, some scrolling through their devices, others sipping champagne offered by the attentive flight crew. Inside the plane, a soft, ambient music plays in the background. Among them was Elena Rodriguez, a calm and composed woman in her late 30s. Dressed in a tailored burgundy blazer and matching slacks, Elena exuded an understated elegance. She moved with quiet confidence, though she made no effort to draw attention to herself. Elena Rodriguez steps into the cabin, her calm presence drawing attention. Her steps are measured, and her gaze sweeps the cabin briefly before she moves toward her seat. Her destination wasn't just another trip, it was a journey to oversee her growing empire. Though no one on board yet knew who she was, she preferred it that way, for now. Lauren, the lead flight attendant, stands near the entrance, her crisp uniform perfectly tailored, her sharp features exuding control. She greets the passengers one by one, her smile warm for some, colder for others. She prides herself on keeping order on the plane, though her idea of order often depends on how people look or behave. Lauren's welcoming tone shifts subtly as she greets Elena with a curt, "Welcome aboard," the warmth noticeably absent. Behind Elena, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond sat. The couple in their 60s exude the ease of seasoned travelers. Mrs. Raymond clutches a small knitting bag, her fingers already twitching to begin her work. Mr. Raymond carries a folded newspaper, his expression one of mild curiosity as he takes in the scene. Lauren's smile brightens for them. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond. Lovely to have you with us again." Elena glances over her shoulder, noticing the stark contrast in Lauren's tone. Her expression remains calm, through her eyes reflect an awareness of the unspoken dynamics at play. As other passengers settle, Lauren moves through the cabin, ensuring everything is in place. She checks the Raymond couple, offering them a bright smile. "Is there anything I can get for you before we take off?" Mrs. Raymond shakes her head politely, already absorbed in her knitting. Mr. Raymond nods toward his coffee, indicating he's satisfied. When Lauren passes Elena, her demeanor shifts again. She glances at Elena's bag, resting neatly under the seat, and her lips press into a thin line. She doesn't offer the same courtesy or warmth, simply walking by without a word. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's attitude shifted based on appearances? Share your experience in the comments below, and click on the subscribe button. Lauren Reed, in her early 40s, carried herself with the precision of someone who thrived on control. Her pristine uniform and perfectly coiffed hair matched her sharp demeanor. To Lauren, appearances mattered more than anything else, and her judgments were swift and unapologetic. Lauren's eyes narrowed as she watched Elena settle in. Something about Elena didn't sit right with her. Not her clothes, not her calm self-assurance, not the slight accent in her voice, not the fact that she didn't immediately seek attention like many of the passengers Lauren deemed worthy of respect. In Lauren's mind, Elena simply didn't belong. She approached Elena with quick, purposeful strides, her lips curling into a tight smile. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, her tone polite but dripping with condescension. "I think you're in the wrong section." Elena glanced up at her, her expression calm. "I believe this is my seat," she replied, her voice steady with just a touch of her native Spanish cadence. Lauren's smile didn't waver, but her tone sharpened. I don't think so. This section is reserved for our elite passengers. Nearby, the other passengers began to notice the exchange. A nosy socialite sitting leaned slightly to get a better view. Her curiosity piqued. A friendly businessman across the aisle glanced over, frowning slightly at Lauren's tone. Elena remained composed, her gaze steady as she replied. You might want to double-check your passenger list before making assumptions. Lauren's eyebrows arched, her irritation barely hidden. I don't need to check anything, she said sharply. I know who belongs here and who doesn't. The tension in the cabin thickened. The passengers exchanged glances, whispering quietly to each other. Others, uncomfortable, pretended not to notice. One passenger muttered, "Why doesn't she just move if she's in the wrong seat?" Another shrugged, "She's probably trying to sneak in for a free upgrade." Lauren crossed her arms, standing her ground. "If you don't move to the back of the plane," she said, her voice loud enough for others to hear, "I'll have to call security." Elena tilted her head slightly, her calm expression unwavering. "Call whoever you need to," she said, "but I'm not moving." The nosy socialite gasped softly. The businessman leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Lauren, now visibly frustrated, turned to the junior flight attendant, Grace, who stood nearby watching nervously. "Grace," Lauren snapped. "Escort her to the back, now." Grace hesitated, glancing between Elena and Lauren. She wanted to speak up, to say something about checking the passenger list as Elena had suggested, but Lauren's sharp glare froze her in place. Reluctantly, she nodded and stepped forward. Elena shifted slightly in her seat, her calm demeanor still intact. "You might want to think carefully about what you're doing," she said softly, her words carrying more weight than Lauren realized. Lauren scoffed, waving off the warning. "I know exactly what I'm doing," she said. "Now get up." What would you do if someone treated you like this on a flight? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you're loving this story so far, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more stories like this. Lauren's tone grew sharper as she gestured toward the back of the plane. "You're not supposed to be here," she said again, her voice now tinged with impatience. The passengers watched in stunned silence, the tension crackling in the air like static. Elena leaned back slightly, her gaze steady on Lauren. "You shouldn't make assumptions about people," she said quietly. Lauren's smirk widened. "And you shouldn't be in seats you didn't pay for." The cliffhanger came as Elena finally picked up her phone, her calm expression unchanging. She typed something quickly, then set it back down on the armrest. "You're making a mistake," she said simply, her words hanging in the air. Lauren didn't listen. "We'll see about that," she muttered, gesturing again for Grace to act. The junior attendant stepped closer, her hesitation palpable as the scene continued to unfold. Lauren's irritation only grew as Elena remained seated. Her quiet confidence, a stark contrast to Lauren's increasingly flustered demeanor. The tension in the cabin thickened with every passing moment, drawing the attention of nearby passengers who watched the exchange with curiosity and disbelief. Lauren's voice rose, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm going to ask you one last time, move to the back of the plane, or I will call security." Her words carried a sharp edge, her tone dripping with condescension. Elena, calm as ever, looked up at Lauren. "I've already told you I'm not moving," she said simply. Her tone was even, almost soothing, but it held an undeniable strength that only infuriated Lauren further. A woman ahead, a nosy socialite with perfectly coiffed hair and an air of entitlement, leaned toward her companion. She whispered loudly enough for others to hear, "Looks like she's trying to sneak in for a free ride." Lauren seized on the comment, her smirk returning. "That's exactly what it looks like," she said, folding her arms and turning to the other passengers as though rallying support. "We have rules for a reason, some people just don't respect them." Elena didn't respond to the insults or the growing murmurs around her. Instead, she kept her gaze steady on Lauren, her composure a quiet defiance that spoke louder than any words. Grace hesitated, then took a step toward the passenger list clipped near the cockpit door. Her fingers trembled as she scanned the names, hoping to find something that would help Elena. But before she could say anything, Lauren snapped, "Grace, what are you doing?" Grace turned, her voice barely above a whisper. I was just checking. I've got this under control, Lauren interrupted, her tone sharp. You don't need to get involved. Grace stepped back, her face flushing with embarrassment. She bit her lip, torn between doing what she knew was right and the fear of losing her job. As the tension built, a kind-looking man seated across the aisle leaned forward. The businessman, dressed in a crisp suit and exuding a calm demeanor, smiled at Elena. "Excuse me," he said gently, "is everything all right?" Elena turned to him, her expression softening. "I'm fine, thank you," she replied, her voice steady but grateful for the small act of kindness. Before the businessman could say more, Lauren interjected, her tone accusing. "Sir, I'd appreciate it if you didn't encourage the disturbance." She turned back to Elena, pointing a finger at her. "You're causing a scene," the businessman frowned. "From where I'm sitting," he said calmly, "you're the one making a scene." Lauren's face flushed with anger, and she turned her attention back to Elena. "I've had enough of this," she snapped. "Either you move, or I'll make sure you're escorted off this plane." Elena met her gaze without flinching. "You can try," she said softly. Lauren's frustration boiled over. Her voice shook as she leaned closer to Elena. "Why don't you just admit you're in the wrong seat and stop wasting everyone's time?" Elena remained silent, her calmness only fueling Lauren's anger. Lauren finally left Elena alone and turned to carry out her other duties angrily. Lauren moved briskly down the aisle, her polished shoes clicking softly on the carpet. She carried a tray of sparkling water, her demeanor professional, but her expression tight with irritation. Elena sat quietly in her seat, her attention focused on the book in her hands. Passengers chatted softly, the atmosphere calm, until Lauren's subtle hostility began to surface. Elena had been waiting patiently for a drink, watching as Lauren served Mr. and Mrs. Raymond first, then moved to others in the back. Lauren, however, made no effort to acknowledge Elena. The tray was nearly empty when Elena finally spoke, her tone gentle. "Excuse me, could I have some water, please?" Lauren paused, glancing at Elena with a dismissive look. "I'll get to you when I can," she said curtly, walking past without another word. Elena's calm gaze followed Lauren's retreating figure, but she remained silent. "What would you do if you noticed this kind of behavior? Would you step in or stay quiet? Let us know in the comments below." Minutes passed, and Elena shifted in her seat, trying to find a more comfortable position. She stretched one leg slightly into the aisle, her movements unassuming. Lauren returned, tray in hand, her sharp eyes catching the small adjustment. Instead of asking Elena to move her leg, Lauren deliberately changed her path. In an instant, Lauren's foot struck Elena's leg, the tray tilted, and the glasses of water tumbled forward, splashing onto Elena's lap and the floor. Lauren gasped theatrically, her voice sharp and loud. "Watch where you're putting your legs. You've caused a mess." Passengers turned their heads, startled by the commotion. Elena looked up, startled but composed. Her hands brushing at the water on her trousers, she said calmly, "But you walked into my leg." Elena tilted her head slightly, her calm gaze unwavering. "I've only asked to be treated with the same respect as everyone else," she replied. "And if that's too much to ask, then maybe you're the one who doesn't belong here." The words hung in the air, a quiet yet powerful rebuke. Lauren's face flushed with anger. She stepped closer, her frustration boiling over. "You think you can talk to me like that?" she hissed, her voice sharp. And then in a shocking moment, unable to contain herself, Lauren raised her hand and slapped Elena across the face. The sound echoed through the cabin, sharp and shocking through the cabin, like a thunderclap. Gasps rippled through the passengers. The businessman stood halfway, his face a mix of disbelief and anger. Grace's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. Even the nosy socialite appeared taken aback, her previous smirk replaced by a look of unease. Elena slowly straightened, her hand resting calmly on her laps. Her expression remained composed, her gaze steady as she looked up at Lauren. The cabin was silent, the tension palpable. Elena now straightened in her seat. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes carried a weight that made Lauren hesitate for the first time. "You just made the worst mistake of your life," Elena said quietly, her voice calm but cutting through the air like a knife. What would you do if you were in Elena's shoes? Let us know in the comments below. And if this story has you hooked, hit like and subscribe now. Elena looked up at Lauren, her voice steady and composed. I've been patient with you, but your behavior has crossed the line, she said, her words deliberate and firm. Lauren's expression darkened, her jaw tightened, and her hands clenched at her sides. Crossed the line, she snapped, her voice rising. You're the one who's been disruptive since you got on this plane. Elena didn't flinch, she didn't touch her face or respond in kind. Instead, she slowly straightened her posture, her gaze fixed firmly on Lauren. Her calm demeanor remained intact, even in the face of such blatant aggression. You'll regret that, Elena said softly, her voice carrying a quiet authority that seemed to fill the entire cabin. Lauren faltered for a moment, her confidence shaken by Elena's unyielding composure, but she quickly recovered, scoffing loudly. Regret it, she sneered. What are you going to do? Call the police? Elena didn't answer, she didn't need to. Her silence spoke volumes, and the passengers could feel the shift in power. From the corner of the cabin, Grace, the younger flight attendant, watched the scene unfold with a mixture of horror and determination.
She had been quietly observing Lauren's behavior all day,
her discomfort growing with every passing moment. Now she knew she couldn't stay silent any longer. Discreetly, Grace stepped away from the commotion and pulled out her phone. She dialed a number quickly, her fingers trembling slightly.
When the call connected,
her voice was hushed but firm. It's Grace, she said. We have a situation on the plane. Grace returned to her post, her face a mix of worry and determined. The plane had barely touched down when the doors opened, and two uniformed officers strode aboard. Lauren's eyes widened in disbelief as she realized what was happening. She hadn't expected this. Not at all, she stammered. There must be some mistake. Elena, still composed, simply gestured toward Lauren. She assaulted me, she stated clearly, her voice unwavering. The officers turned their attention to Lauren, their expressions impassive. They listened as Elena recounted the events, her voice calm and factual. Lauren, in contrast, grew increasingly agitated, her attempts to defend herself falling flat. The officers, after a brief deliberation, escorted Lauren off the plane, her protests echoing down the aisle. As she was led away, she cast a venomous glare at Elena, her face contorted with rage. The remaining passengers watched in stunned silence as the drama unfolded. Some exchanged glances, others murmured their disbelief. The businessman, who had earlier offered Elena his support, approached her. Are you all right? He asked, his voice filled with concern. I am, Elena replied, offering him a small smile.
Thank you for asking, he nodded, then added.
That was quite something. You handled it with incredible grace. Elena simply shrugged, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. Sometimes, you have to stand up for yourself, she said. The other passengers, emboldened by the turn of events, began to offer their support and admiration. The nosy socialite, whose earlier smirk had vanished, now offered a hesitant apology. I'm so sorry, she stammered. I misjudged the situation. Elena simply nodded, accepting the apology with a graciousness that diffused the tension. Grace, the junior flight attendant, approached Elena, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and admiration. I'm so sorry about what happened, she said quietly. I'm glad you spoke up, Elena replied, offering Grace a warm smile. The other passengers, finally, relaxed. The tension that had permeated the cabin moments before was gone, replaced by a sense of camaraderie and respect. As the plane taxied to the gate, Elena gathered her belongings, preparing to disembark. Before she left, the businessman approached her again. By the way, he said, I couldn't help but notice your bag. Is that? Elena smiled, recognizing the question. Yes, it is, she replied. I am Elena Rodriguez, CEO of Rodriguez Enterprises. The businessman's eyes widened in surprise. I had no idea, he stammered, clearly taken aback. Elena chuckled, the sound of genuine amusement. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? People often make assumptions, she said. As Elena walked off the plane, she left behind a cabin full of humbled passengers and a flight attendant who had learned a valuable lesson about judging others. The incident was a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and true strength often lies in the most unexpected places. The end.